Hi there, this is Dennis Velco with OutBüro. Thank you so much for tuning in to yet another episode of OutBüro Voices, where we have engaging conversations with LGBTQ professionals, entrepreneurs, community leaders, and great allies. Just like Romy Newman, she is one of the co-founders of Fairygodboss. Now, I've been following that and her for a little while now, so I'm super excited about this conversation, and I hope you will be too. So, Romy, welcome to the show.
Dennis, thank you so much for having me. Glad to be here.
Well, awesome. Well, you mentioned an interesting career tidbit just a few moments ago, and I like to start every show off with giving just a very brief kind of overview of your career journey, because I think that sets a really great stage in showing the diversity and career paths. Would you mind giving us a little bit of overview of your background?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the most important thing to know about my career path is it was completely nonlinear. And when people, I always think, when people ask young people, what do you want to be when you grow up? I think that's such a wrong question because I think you have to trial and error your way into the things, finding the things that are good, you're good at and that you love doing, and then kind of lean into them. So I started my career in marketing. I worked at Estee Lauder, and I was telling you before this call that I actually launched and managed their national makeup artistry program. So 30 events across the US in a week, and I spent about 2 years of my life on a plane. But it was an incredible experience learning about what it was like to manage and coordinate a lot of people. But it was interesting because I was in marketing, and it lit a little bit of the first bit of the fire in me that made me realize I should be in sales, because I realized that the kind of adrenaline of making revenue happen really lights me on fire. But I hadn't totally processed that yet. And for a variety of personal reasons, professional reasons, I made a big pivot and went to become a consultant, a strategy consultant. I thought I had always wanted to be a consultant. And then I came to realize that I am not designed to be a consultant at all. I have Patty Hearst syndrome. So if I'm going to work on a project, I want to see it through. I want to be part of the organization that's working on it. I don't want to be on the outside. So quickly, I ended up pivoting again, was hired by Google to work on a newspaper advertising initiative they were launching. And then out of that was recruited to go work at the Wall Street Journal, where I worked for 7 years, and finally made my big pivot into a full-time sales revenue management role. Ultimately, I was responsible for overseeing all of the revenue for WHJ.com. And I then I had done that for 7 years, and my life changed a lot. I had my 2 kids while I was there. I have to say that experience was thrilling. It was a company and a culture that fit me like a glove. I was very happy going to work there all the time. So I was at the Wall Street Journal, and it fit me like a glove. And what was interesting was after about 7 years, maybe I got the 7-year itch. I had my 2 children, and I started to lift my head up. And one of the things that I got to do as part of my job is work with all of these ad tech startups. And so I was seeing kind of this energy and excitement that was coming out of the startup world. And here I was in this very corporate world in a business that was facing more challenges. And I thought, oh, that looks thrilling and exhilarating and exciting. And I also was getting to a point where I kind of wanted to be my own boss. And so Georgene, my co-founder, approached me and said she had this idea for a career site that would support women in the workplace with information. The mission is to improve the workplace for women through transparency. And I thought, wow, well, that just sounds like a great idea. And so 6 years ago, we came together to found Fairygodboss. And I think what has blown me away is it went from like a seed of an idea to like a real company with 50 employees and lots of customers. And it has just been the most professionally exhilarating thing I could do.
Well, awesome. And, I really like that you acknowledge and share how the career paths, especially for young people when they're asked, oh, what do you want to do? I too just wholeheartedly believe, that kids are so pressured to go directly from high school into college and choose a educational path when most of them don't know what the world they want to do. And stats show that the majority, and to follow that up is statistics show that the majority of people in the professional sphere do not work in the area of their degree.
Right.
And so it's like, is it just something that was showing that you could complete something? I would really prefer personally if family members and society at large would give kids the opportunity to go off into military service. You could also help pay for your college, maybe do 2 years of volunteering. Several other countries around the world mandatory military or community service for a period of time. And, I'll just say I'm not opposed to that. Not that I have to say that it's mandatory, but I really like people taking a little bit of time and space to figure out who they are and what they enjoy. So I appreciate that, especially that you're working in, career space, with women, and I'm working in career space for LGBT. But I think that's really important for people to hear and know. And I've done, this will be like my 71st or 72nd episode. I've had some career coaches, like authored TED Talk speaking career coaches, and they echo that same thing. And I'm just, like, how does it get down to parents and society when all of us who are in the know this? So,
right. And I bet none of your 70 whatever guests said, I knew I always wanted to be this, and now I'm that.
None of them. It's all been a journey. And that's why I like to take that time very in the first few minutes to really talk about those things so that people really get that message over and over again and see that, oh, maybe you feel like you're fledgling on your career. Take a moment, pause, think about it, and maybe set some strategy and what you'd like to go after, including the opportunity to become an entrepreneur like yourself.
Yeah.
So you were contacted by your current business partner, and she brought this idea to you. Yeah. Was there, what was kind of the why and the kind of the impetus spark that made that idea come to fruition, and for you to just like go, yes, I see this, I believe in it, let's do it? Talk to me a little bit about that early entrepreneurial whys and hows.
Absolutely. So Georgene and I were both executives at Dow Jones, and there was a big management shakeup, and Georgene lost her job in it. And it was unexpected, and she was 2 months pregnant. So there's no discrimination. Nobody even knew she was pregnant, but it meant she was going to have to begin a job search and realize she'd be interviewing while she was visibly pregnant and about to go on leave, to need to go on leave. Mm. And so what she realized, and she's a product person, I should say. So she started kind of doing her research, and she had the experience that many job seekers had, where she wanted to kind of gather as much information about potential employers as she could online before deciding where to apply for a job. And there were all these sites that had evolved, like Glassdoor and LinkedIn, that were designed to tell you about what kind of experience you could have as an employee at this company. But none of them were they were not answering or satisfying the questions she had, which were, how are women treated at this company? How many women are in leadership? What is your work-life balance? If I have to leave at 5:30 to go have dinner with my kids, is that accepted? Or is this the culture where everyone stays till 8?
In New York City, yeah.
They are, yeah.
I mean, especially due to the travel and commute, whenever I was consulting with big financial companies there, they would show up at 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock in the morning and stay till 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And you just can't do that with trying to raise a family.
Yeah, right,
So
right.
very
So
difficult.
understanding, is this acceptable? What's the culture? And especially what's the maternity leave policy? So I'm not sure if you know this, but the US is only one of 3 countries in the UN that does not have a federally mandated maternity leave program. And the
I
other
did not know that. No.
Papua New Guinea and one other that I don't even know. So this idea of having to just figure out what kind of leave the company offers is a uniquely American thing. In the worst way. And so she found, Georgene had sort of identified the sweet spot because it was a real kind of dark corner of information that was not publicly available. And she had this idea to crowdsource the maternity leave policies of all these companies, and no such database existed. So what really put us on the map at the beginning was that we were the only data trove of US maternity leave policies that existed. And what would happen was not only would individual women use it and find it, but companies would use it and find it because they weren't able to see what their competitors were doing without it. So that sort of like got us off the ground. But anyway, so that was Georgene's idea. And how she came to it. And one of the things she realized was that it is can be lonely to found a business by yourself.
Know that.
And we've talked about that. And so the idea was, she wanted someone to get in the trenches with her. And here we are 6 years later. And what's funny is I have to say, we have a remarkably good relationship for co-founders. We get along extremely well, even after 6 years. And a lot of people will ask, what was your secret? How did you find out? How did you locate each other? What kind of process did you take to make sure you would work well together? And I got to say, this was all luck. I did no process. This was like total chance. We really didn't know each other very well before we did this. And we just got very lucky.
Really? Okay. Well, it is nice. It sounds like you two had different sides of the coin, different skill sets to bring to the table, which is very, very important.
Yes, we are very complementary. We have similar sets of values, similar kind of work ethics, but different points of view and sets of experience. And then the other thing that we have that works really well is that our business is a marketplace. So we have a user side and a B2B side. And that gives us enough scope so that she really focuses on the user side. I focus on the B2B side, and it gives us enough room to kind of work and manage our own thing without getting in each other's way.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
part of a healthy marriage is having separate interests.
there you go. Enough commonalities, yet enough separate interests.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. So that's a nice segue into, let's chat a little bit about what is Fairygodboss, and and let's start off with kind of the average user, the employee out there. And then you mentioned it's a B2B market space. So we can then segue into what does it mean for that? And then what does it mean for just employers?
Yeah.
Can we go down that path?
Absolutely. So we are now and hope to continue to grow as the largest career community for women. So we are a place on the internet where women can come together and share their triumphs and their challenges and their despair and their need for advice and their encouragement. And what makes us different than everything else that's out there is that users can participate anonymously. So anytime you want to be part of our community forum, you can post without your name next to it. And that is just really essential. When we did initial user research, one of the main themes we identified was that women feel really isolated, as often any kind of underrepresented minority does, right? When you're the only or the other, you feel more isolated. And so we wanted to bring a place where women could come together to share and support each other in all of that. And our typical user is actually around the age of 30. We over-index on all kinds of diversity. And right now, our typical user is professional, because I think or somebody who works in an office, because a lot of the conversation about that happens to be sort of office challenges. Though we do hope to grow to represent all women, and as you said, and their allies. But the idea is, how can we come together? How can we lift each other up, share experiences when we don't have resources? And I think, unfortunately, we are in a moment of unparalleled crisis for working women in America. We had over 3 million women leave the workforce in 2020. And we are back to 1980s levels of workforce we are back to 1980s levels of workforce participation for women. And and so more than ever, we need to help support each other through this and lift each other up. And so that's the kind of conversation that we're seeing women have all day on our platform is, I'm having this challenge, I'm having this problem. What should I do about it? And so I know our community does a great job of lifting each other up, but I also, when I see posts where people are struggling, I really try to get in there and support them.
Yes, got you. And, I've seen some, reports that to validate what you just said, that female participation in the workplace has, drastically gone backwards due to COVID. And, is that is that kind of hearkening back to kind of the stereotypical man goes off to work and woman stays home with child? Is it kind of that?
Well, I think it's
mentality?
economic. It goes back to the wage gap. In heterosexual marriages, most often the man earns more, right? And so our caregiving infrastructure has collapsed in this country because school was caregiving, right? And if schools are not open, somebody has to stay home and take care of the children. And so who's going to stay home? The person in the relationship who earns less.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Yeah, gotcha. So very interesting. And, unfortunately right now, of course, someone could be watching this at any point, but as of right now, it is the middle of February in 2021. And, we really just don't see a great horizon right now on this pandemic ending. There's lots of hopeful content out there, and vaccinations and so forth are happening, but as far as getting kind of quote unquote back to normal, it's just not on the horizon
now. So I have to be optimistic because it's the only way I function. If this pandemic has taught us anything, it's that more flexibility can work. That nobody lost productivity here. In fact, I'm not sure if you saw this research from Pew, but as we discussed earlier, the average American had an hour commute in each direction to work. So the average American basically got 2 hours back in his or her day. And what do you think they did with it? Worked more. They worked more.
Huh.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Well, and there are lots of companies now are realizing, and that's again one, I'm also extremely optimistic person, but the kind of content is out there, the reports are out there, and that showing that to your point, that productivity was still up, and companies who were fearful of change, allowing workers to work from home, all of a sudden were forced to do that.
Yep.
And then saw that, productivity is still up. And now so many companies like Facebook and Google and several others, have come out and said, hey, we're going to just extend this, and we're not expected to get, to have this, same office environment again. And so that is a new opportunity. Matter of fact, just the other day released an episode with a very high level HR consultant, used to be an HR director at Facebook and so forth. And he was sharing with me that remote jobs are up 60%. And so there is a new shift toward even seeking employees who are not geographically located directly where you are. And I think that's a great opportunity for employers to get great talent who doesn't happen to be geographically located where they are. And
which is great for diversity also. It has, I mean, it's totally changed the landscape of what the talent pools that companies are seeking. That's for sure.
Yes, I think one of the challenges would be, which he and I spoke about, is kind of when you are bringing on a new employee and you're all remote, continuing, what are the challenges for the HR department and culture and belonging to really have everyone still feel that connectedness and that sense of belonging in the workspace when so that's a challenge. But it's evolution.
Right, for sure. And I think, the world has evolved, tools have evolved, certainly since even the start of this pandemic, things like Zoom or Microsoft Teams or Slack, and the way that people are finding connection or expecting to find connection have changed as well. But what's interesting is Fairygodboss, we're about a little over 50 people right now, and 20 of them were onboarded virtually.
Wow.
And it certainly is a challenge to kind of communicate culture, communicate norms, communicate even like best practices. What we're just learning by doing. And so far, I think we've gotten reports that our new employees have had a very good virtual experience.
So. Well, wonderful. Yeah. And so that's kind of a perspective for the employees out there, the professionals out there who identify as female, coming on to the Fairygodboss, being able to, in a anonymous way, connect with others, share your experiences, get advice, find information about potential employers. Right. And just feel a level of connectedness with each other. Exactly. So you also mentioned that it's kind of a B2B platform, and how is that possible? Because we have a lot of entrepreneurs within the community and my audience.
Yeah. So what is wonderful, if there is a silver lining, it's that more companies than ever are oriented toward driving and increasing diversity through their workforce. Finally, they are seeing the value it brings. They see that it increases innovation. They see that it increases financial performance. And they've had some help. They've had some nudges with companies like Goldman Sachs or BlackRock that refuse to represent companies that don't represent diversity. NASDAQ refuses to let you trade on their exchange if you don't represent diversity. So there's all and there's more and more stakeholders that are requiring companies to find and accelerate their path to better diversity of all kinds. And so with that said, we've definitely found a nice number of companies and growing that have specific initiatives in place, even metrics they've identified where they want to increase the representation of women in their company from X to Y. And so, what we found is the reason that they are where they are is that the current set of tools, much like the story I told you about Georgene, current set of tools don't lend themselves to increasing applications or interest from potential women applicants. And so if you want to increase the volume of women who are applying for your jobs, you have to find a place to communicate to them that is targeted and specific and addresses the particular job seeking behavior and needs that they have. And I would argue that's ditto for if you're trying to reach the LGBT community. If you're trying to increase your presence there, you would need a targeted solution like OutBüro.
Absolutely, because studies show that 57% of potential qualified applicants, if they do not see that kind of information or don't have websites like Fairygodboss and OutBüro, where companies have the space to robustly put that, because a lot of corporate websites don't allow it or is hurdles to get that content out there. If they don't easily find it, they click away.
Yes.
And so they're
be
losing.
authentic, right? It can't be performative. It can't be just checking a box.
Correct. Yes, there are indexes and so forth out there that are just click the box. Do you have this? Yes or no? But it's not, they don't have any employee input, any employee visibility and validation of the work environment, and that these policies exist and that they work for their workforce. So again, that's, early on in my thinking, because I've shared with you that about now, April is 13 years ago that I started one of the first three LGBT professional groups on LinkedIn, and now it's like 46.8 thousand global members. But I don't control LinkedIn. Like if you guys have a group as well, you don't control LinkedIn. Things come and go, and so it just really was a way for me to say, okay, what are the gaps out there where kind of like your partner Georgina saw, where was the gaps, where was the needs that they had. And that's one of the things during my early kind of assessing, is this even a potential? I mean, because at that point I had only heard of Glassdoor.com. I didn't even know that Indeed did reviews and Monster did reviews. And then I kind of stumbled upon you guys and go, oh, well, then that's a niche market, a very large, much larger than the LGBT community, because it's also inclusive of lesbians and trans people. But, it kind of gave me a sense of, okay, well, I don't have any visibility or insights, but you've been around, so it must work. And that gave me inspiration and gave me hope. And I am still doing it myself. So it's tough. It's tough. It's a little lonely. But yeah, I've been very inspired by what you guys do, and appreciate what you guys do. I also happen to have been doing a little search. Of course, I Google myself and Google key terms, see how things are trending. And it was nice to just literally like 2 hours ago, as I was prepping for our call, I saw also that you had an article about LGBT companies that were LGBT friendly on your blog post. I didn't click through and so forth, but obviously women as an umbrella is also inclusive of those who identify as part of the LGBT community.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, from a corporate values perspective, we are all about allyship of all underrepresented minorities, right? I mean, we have a niche and a focus because kind of our thesis is that there is importance in individualization, but it's our driving kind of passion to make sure that all people feel represented in the workplace and beyond.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And, for the men out there too, when we're talking about, what are the pregnancy, what are the leaves, when family is created, I have to absolutely applaud corporations who extend their definition and their family creation leave policies to include all kinds of families and all gender representation. Because, like I don't know if you know this, but I'm an adoptive parent. My ex and I, although we're divorced now, but we adopted our son at birth. And we both earned around the same amount of money, yet I traveled 80% of the time. So that contract came to an abrupt end unexpectedly 3 weeks before our son was due to be born. So that kind of was this is the universe telling us who's going to be the stay-at-home parent.
Yeah.
He only traveled 30 minutes on LA traffic, which is not bad at all. 30 minutes on the LA traffic, not bad. Versus me gone 80% of the time. So I became the stay-at-home parent for the first 2 years of our son's life.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah.
So you have a good sense for how important leave policy is.
Yes, it is. Well, there it was unemployed, contract ended, and all of that good stuff. But I understand obviously the value of what it means to raise a child and the importance of, because that was a conversation that we had. We wanted one of us to be the stay-at-home parent for at least the first 6 months, possibly the first year. And that turned into 2 years before I then launched another business on my own. So I can totally identify with that. And two, I also had a similar situation with, what females go through. After those 2 years, I made my son's all his own baby food. He only ate out of a, store-bought jar when we traveled, and that was it. I mean, so I was like the super dad, the super Poppy. I'm called Poppy. My ex's daddy, I'm Poppy. So, but whenever I was looking at, okay, do I try to get back into the work that I used to do, and knowing that I'm going to travel 70 to 80% of my time, or do I look for a local job? I hate routine. I hate routine. So I'm a really bad employee when it comes to doing the same thing over and over again.
I'm like that too.
That's why I'm a great entrepreneur. So at any rate, whenever I was looking for a potential contract job, or going back to work or something, I had that same thing. I had the thing of, oh, well, you've been out of the industry for 2 years, and then it became 3, and and it was like, just what women go through on a regular basis because they took time out to raise their children, and then how difficult it is after that gap to come back. And what I experienced as a man was having to explain, oh, well, I took time to raise our son, and getting those looks and those questions. What? Your wife didn't do that? Well, I don't have a wife. Oh, you're a single parent? No, my husband continued to work while and anyway, all those awkward conversations that I'm so happy to see that so many companies now are starting to, and I hope more take the lead and take that ball and run with it, providing family leave equally to all genders, and regardless of how family is formed, whether that's adoptive, whether that's surrogacy, whether that's even foster care, bringing in someone in a foster care situation. So anywho, there's, although I'm a guy, have been things in my life where I can totally relate to some of the difficulties that women go through. So just sharing that little bit of info with you.
How old is your son now?
He's about to turn 11 in April.
Wonderful. That's great.
Yeah. And so there's the B2B side of the Fairygodboss.
Yes.
Is that the employers signing up for the site, or is there more of that, or is there a B2B kind of supplier and like diversity supplier connectivity?
No, not yet. Not one day maybe, but no. This is the company signing on to establish a profile on our site to talk about exactly what you said, right? What do women want to know? What are the key things to communicate to them? And then promote their jobs. And so there's sort of a self-selection. If a woman comes to our platform, she knows that these are the companies that care about hiring more women, right?
Understand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is my goal too. I'm still, working on the early adopters, we'll say. COVID has made it a little tough because I hard launched OutBüro in April. And of course, COVID immediately hit. So rough time. Mm-hmm. But surviving, focusing on content, to broaden the interest and so forth, having conversations like this to share, what's out there. And so it's been rewarding and educational, but yes, I see that's where, and I need a great business partner like you who focuses on sales and marketing to just drive.
All right. So my network, if you're listening to this, Dennis needs a partner. Come help him with a great idea.
I need a partner and early adopter companies to the site. Revenue would be great, right?
Yes. And I actually was just preparing notes for a webinar I'm doing tomorrow. I really believe in this verticalization of the job board market that will happen.
Yeah.
And we're seeing it already, right? It used to be one size fits all. And now there's this platform for college students. There's something called Rig Up for oil rig workers, right?
Uh-huh.
Different job seekers behave differently. You're going to increase your chance of success with targeted messaging on community-driven platforms. And that's why you and I are not competitors.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't view you as a competitor at all.
Right.
There's a tiny, tiny, tiny infinitesimal overlap. I mean, when you think of lesbian and female identifying trans persons out of the whole gamut of women,
yes,
right? It's like less than 1%, right?
Right. Like 20% of our users identify as not straight.
Oh, okay. Well, based on some studies, I love to write about studies. Based on the studies, I can see that. Yeah. So, well, very interesting. And so you mentioned 50 employees.
Yeah.
Now you guys have grown quite a bit because like from a year ago, if I'm not mistaken, I saw some news that you guys did a round of funding.
2 years.
2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then, because at that point, if I'm not mistaken, based on what I had read in an article, you guys were like 16 to 18 employees. And so you guys have had a significant growth over this last year.
And I will tell you because I know you will have to scale rapidly soon. It's been the hardest part. And it is a little bit, even before we were virtual, it's that what happens when the ratio you have of newcomers is greater than the people who are your culture carriers, right? How do you translate knowledge? How do you translate objectives? How you're constant, like the ground under you is constantly moving because you're onboarding people. Thank goodness there's Slack, but what happens is people don't even know there's these new people. What do they do? Who are they? Right? What do I go to them for? And so there can be so much movement in the organization that it's hard to manage. And I definitely think that's been the greatest managerial challenge we've faced.
Yes, and that's for any business,
exactly.
in any sector. And yes, and right, and it is challenging. It's like I know it's like I already know what my first 3 hires will be,
right.
And I mean, but it'll be me delegating stuff to put lesser things that is not as valuable in my time yet still valuable. So like I already know as soon as I have enough revenue to justify the new hires, I already know what 3 to 4 new people will be doing. And will actually increase the capability in and around content.
Yeah.
So at any rate, I can totally relate and understand with what you're meaning. And 2, it's being able to identify what is needed and source the right people and give them enough space while enough oversight. That's a challenge.
Yes, it is. However, you and I have something going for us, and it's this. Every day, more people in America want their work to be purpose-driven and want to make a difference.
Yes.
I mentioned to you, and don't get me wrong, because I loved marketing lipstick, but it was not going to change the world, right? And it is really satisfying to have a job that makes a difference to people's lives. And to even, I have the privilege of seeing our community grow and our community support each other and being able to help other, our first and highest priorities to help women, especially those who are struggling in the workforce right now, right? And so if we can do that, it makes a big difference. And so the ability to attract the best talent matters when you're a purpose-driven organization. And I actually just saw data on this from PwC, but you see large corporations really amplifying the purpose that goes with their work, whether it's through volunteerism, whether it's through corporate pledges. You look at a company like Dell that has these enormous pledges that they're making to sustainability, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
can go there and market computers, but you're really helping increase sustainability in our world, right? So anyway, my point is, though, companies like yours and mine that are primarily purpose-driven are going to have the best talent in the future.
Yes, I could not agree more. And it's nice that we can support nonprofits within our community and things, but luckily we don't have to plant a tree every single time to be purpose driven, right?
That's
So,
right.
some companies, they have to seek out third parties in order to even just show a smidgen of sustainability and purpose, where we have that from the core of who we are.
Yeah. But I will say, I mean, I am really impressed to see corporate America step up to the plate, especially on things like the environment or maternity leave, where our government hasn't even yet. And you're really seeing it in spades.
Yeah. Well, cool. Absolutely. Well, great. Well, I know I'm almost out of time with you. I want to respect your time. I'm sure you have something else to run off to. So naturally, we'll have links to the website and so forth down below and on your profile on the OutBüro website, because I linked to OutBüro profile, not LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
So is there any last thoughts or something that maybe we didn't get a chance to chat about that you'd like to bring up before we go?
I just would tell your audience, I want to make sure this is sort of the advice I've been giving out all week. You can do so much more than you think. And that has been the greatest thing I've learned through entrepreneurialism. You talked about creating content. And I used to work at the Wall Street Journal, right? And the people who created content there were the best journalists in the world, literally. And so when we started this and we realized we needed to create content, I thought, oh, gee, I can't create content. I didn't go to Columbia Journalism School. I haven't won a Pulitzer Prize. I can't just write an article. But you know what? I can. And they're not great. And they're not nearly as good as the ones that my Wall Street Journal colleagues would write, but they're good enough. And, there's all these other things that I didn't know I could do. And there are so many things we all can do that we didn't even know. And the best thing to do is just try. And if we fail, we learn something, right? And yeah. And so I would just say
exactly. I have a say. I have a
limit yourself. Yeah.
I have a saying that you are more than welcome to utilize. I say magic and miracles happen when you believe in yourself and you take action. It doesn't mean you're perfect, but if you don't take action, just like a tennis player or a golfer, you don't become a world champion just because you bought some clubs or bought a tennis racket and a cute outfit, right?
Right.
You get good based on doing it and practicing and going and going. And so, and you just do. Especially as an entrepreneur, you have to wear so many hats and do so many things, or you have to have the funds to hire it. But, something is better than nothing is what I like to say. Yeah. Something is better than nothing. And you're going to get better the more you do it. So again, magic and miracles happen when you believe in yourself, or you believe in whatever, a higher power. But the key is you take action. So wonderful. Well, Romy, I have such enjoyed our conversation and appreciate you making time out of your busy week to chat with us today.
Likewise. Great to talk to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for staying tuned to this episode of OutBüro Voices. We've been chatting with Romy Newman, one of the co-founders of Fairygodboss. Be sure to check out Fairygodboss and get on their website and start interacting with other women from around the globe. Be sure while you're here, subscribe or follow on whatever application or site that you are viewing or listening to this on. We would appreciate ensuring that you are informed of all future episodes. I'm Dennis Velco with OutBüro. See you there. Bye-bye.